Our scripture reading this morning comes from the book of Ezra, chapter 2. The chapter is mainly a list of names, so I will only be reading certain selections. Thank you. Ezra, chapter 2, list of the returned exiles. Now these were the people of the province who came from those captive exiles whom King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had carried captive to Babylonia. They returned to Jerusalem and Judah, all to their own towns. The number of the Israelite people: the priests, the Levites, the temple servants, the descendants of Solomon's servants. The whole assembly together was 42,360, besides their male and female servants, of whom there were 7,337, and they had 200 male and female singers. As soon as they came to the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, some of the heads of families made freewill offerings for the house of God to erect upon its site. According to their resources, they gave to the building fund 61,000 derricks of gold, 5,000 minas of silver, and 100 priestly robes. The priests, the Levites, and some of the people lived in Jerusalem and its vicinity. And the singers, the gatekeepers, and the temple servants lived in their towns, and all Israel in their towns. Let us sing together our prayer for illumination. I will come to you. Stephanie will sing verses 1 and 2, and we will hear the chorus, which is printed in the book.
So last week, if you were here, it was a very exciting day because we started our summer Bible study of the book of Ezra. I really appreciate it. You're really trying to be quick. It's a story that at first glance might seem boring and outdated, but is really a story about rebuilding. It opens with news that the Persian king Cyrus has conquered the Babylonians, where the Israelites had been held in exile for over 40 years. And the Persian policy on ruling conquered nations is to send everyone home to help them rebuild their institutions and their own governments in return for just some taxes and some tributes. And so an edict comes from King Cyrus of Persia to send all of the Israelites home to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. And as we remembered this story last week, we remembered the history of our church and how for the first 75 years, there was not really a time at which something wasn't being remodeled or built or rebuilt. We remembered the faith and trust of our predecessors and that they had in God's plan for this place as they took out loans and raised money. And we remember that we have indeed been a people who build, with a legacy as Christians of ancestors who have always been about the work of rebuilding. So today we continue with Ezra chapter 2, which outlines the resources that the Israelites collected in order to begin their work. So in the first chapter, we heard King Cyrus command all of the neighbors of the Israelites, the Babylonians, and the other foreigners who would never ever set foot in the Jerusalem temple to anyways give them some money for their building project. At the end of chapter 2, we hear about the resources the Israelites themselves had gathered: 61,000 derricks of gold. A derrick was a Persian coin, and 5,000 minas, or pounds, of silver, and 100 priestly robes. A lot of weight to carry, if nothing else. But these are not the only, or even the most important resources that God's people gathered. There are a whole lot more words in this chapter than what Lisa read this morning, and most of it sounds like this. Let's see. Now these are the people of the province who came from those captive exiles whom King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had carried captive to Babylonia. They came with Zerubbabel, Joshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Rephaiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvai, Rehum, and Baana. The number of Israelite people, the descendants of Parosh, of Shephatiah, of Ara, of Moab, of Jeshua and Joab, of Elam, of Zatu, of Zakai, of Bani, of Bebi, of Asgad, of Adonai, and on and on and on and on.
Show off.
There it is in Hebrew. Thank you, college undergraduate degree. That's what it's good for. That's it. When we come upon that in the Bible, I don't know about you, I usually skip it, right? It's boring, the names are weird, we can't pronounce them, and we feel like we probably got the gist. They're a bunch of people, right? But this isn't just a list of names. It's a list of names that is a list of resources that the community is taking with them and calling upon to undertake an enormous challenge. It is the names of the ancestors and of the names of their descendants. It is the past carried into the future, and it is carrying on the work that has gone before. It's more than a list of names. It is a proclamation. These are God's people. These are our people, the ones who have seen and know that God will be faithful. I think it's clear to us maybe when we put it into our own terms, so that's what I tried to do. Here is a list of the members of our church. It is not all of them. There are 1,176 total members from the past 125 years. But here at the top are those who gathered to form this church 125 years ago in 1593. And then it skips about 75 years, except for some very important people. Mrs. Judy Malcolmson, Mrs. Barbara Brownhard, Mrs. Barbara Young, they're in the middle there. We'll give out awards later for faithful membership. Crowns, maybe? Sure, I don't know.
A sash.
Yeah, a sash would be good, yeah. And these are people of Massachusetts who came together to form a church in 1893 and those who followed in their way. Right now, our church is in the middle of a transition, right? We are building a relationship with the Shekinah congregation, the Brazilian congregation that's sharing our church, and we have many of these people on this list never had to think about sharing their church building before, but we're starting to do that now. We're working on the sale of the manse, possibly, and reorganizing the way we use our church space. We have launched a fund to build that dang elevator, finally, and there is a lot in this time of transition that we need right now. It's easy to see what we need in terms of money. We need X amount of dollars. God has already started to show us, I think, that the money is out there, that God will provide it with a little work on our part. But there are other resources that we need in this time. We need hope, the belief that there is something good ahead for us. We need faith to trust that God has a plan for us. We need hearts that seek to follow where God leads, even if the path takes us to places we have never been before in 125 years. As I look at this list of names, I've only known you a little bit more than 3 years. I see in these names testimonies of faith and hope and love and joy. Our people are a resource. Not just the people who sit here now who can paint and pack and fundraise, but the people who built and maintained this place, the people who taught us how to live. Our people.
As I was writing this list, there were some very important names. And one was here in the year 2000, Joseph and Gale Awasume. What's Joseph's story?
He came back.
Came back.
He walked in, the only black face in an all-white congregation, and he came back the next week. And then the third week he brought patience. And then the fourth week he brought Francis.
The rest is history. There are other names I pray that we recognize. Is there anyone else that you need to tell a story about?
Any one of them has a story to some extent.
Yeah. Let's see, Howie Foster is up here somewhere. 1973. Oh, well placed. Howard Foster has been described to me as the instigator, perhaps, of this church's welcoming spirit. The person who has taught us when someone comes in the door to say, welcome. Anybody else they want to remember and tell their story a little?
I remember Peter Quinn because where we come from, we hardly see men that follow their wives to their churches. So, because of Stacy, Peter Quinn was on this church and love this church.
That's awesome. Peter, whose daughter convinced him to come, thank you, Stacy. Anybody else that I should remember?
Anna Foster,
Yeah, Anna Foster. Yeah.
formidable woman. To look at her, she could be intimidating. She was a sweetheart. She was a regular in the Bible, the adult Sunday school. She was adult in the regular. She was one of the first. I think she was the first female elder ordained in this church. I believe she was one of the first female elders in the Presbytery of Boston. I think she served as moderator.
She was also clerk for the Presbytery. What is it?
Moderator of the
Not the moderator, the
Student
Clerk, standing
state
clerk.
clerk, yeah.
Oh,
State
yeah.
clerk for a long time. For a long time. And I think she was like the first female state clerk as well. Yeah, so she said she broke some ground as the first female to do it herself.
Judy.
Always said she took these offices, not
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. She never viewed it as
Yeah.
I'm a lady breaking ground. I'm doing it.
She
because I've been-
simply said, I'm following where God is calling me.
Yeah, I've been called and I'm doing it.
Amazing what happens when we listen to what God calls us to do, huh? Imagine, if you will, in 50 years from now, the stories that the people of this church will tell about you, about what you have brought to this place. Some of you who are younger than 13 don't have names on here yet, but you will have your chance to join. It'll be really exciting. I hope, yeah, Judy. We have a lot of really excellent cooks on this list, yes, and excellent eaters as well. Because that's what we do, right? This is more than just a list of names. This is a representation of the community, and it is a proclamation that we belong to God and to each other, that none of us is alone, that none of us goes alone, that we go together. Yeah.
One last thought about potlucks. And I tell this to people all the time, is one of the wonderful things about having a diverse congregation is that potlucks are so fantastic.
The song we're about to sing is called "They Did Not Build in Vain," and I hope that we all feel that as we carry on the tradition and legacy of this church in a new and interesting way, as we sing a new church into being, that those who came before us put their hard-earned money and their labor into this place for us, not even knowing who we were, that we would ever be here. So friends, will you stand up here if you like and sing.